Hey everybody, my name is Frank Michaud. I'm very happy today to be able to present you a session around authentication and authorization. So I'm going to present you a new approach that is called risk-based authentication authorization and zero trust architecture. The agenda for today, I'm going to start to explain a bit better actually what are we talking about. And present actually what are the current solutions and the shortcomings and the problem associated to it. Then I will present a new approach as presented in the title, right? That is based on zero trust architecture, but other concepts as well. And to push a bit this even a bit further, integrate a concept called distributed identity. The idea is some of you might already be aware of that, and to see how these two actually work combined very well together. To finish, just to have a recap and just the key takeaways, and hopefully you're going to take it from this session. So let's start with the introduction. So what are exactly we are talking about here, right? So we are in a conference called Authenticate, right? So most probably most of you knows what it is about. But just to be sure, so here really focusing on the fact of we have a user, right, that wants to actually access application and services on your enterprise information systems, and actually how we can handle that experience, right? So how does it look? So the idea here is really to be able to distinguish authorized user, right, the right you want to allow to go on your system versus the hackers, right? The one that's trying to steal identity, trying to get in your network, in your system, in your enterprise to actually make damage, like hackers, for example. So what's the picture today, right? The last couple of years with the total revolution that we have seen with the COVID pandemic, we have seen that people are working kind of anywhere. It was already a bit the case before, but it's becoming even more actually deployed. It's happening in every company, right? So you can work from the Starbucks, as like the coffee shop right there, or from your home, or from your place. So, and on top of it, lately, I mean, you don't find too many enterprises still working on desktop, right, forcing employees coming in the office to access the information systems. But most people have like bring your own device or laptops and can really work from anywhere. So if you look at that, what's happening actually on your information system, it used to be a system that is pretty well enclosed, where you have almost the servers down in the cellar, the people working on top of it in the floors above it, right? And you can put easily walls around it. But here is totally not the case anymore. You take this kind of well-designed, well-enclosed system and you explode it. Everybody can access anything from anywhere, right? And this is really completely exploding. It's not even increasing, it's exploding the attack surface, right? So that's the reality we are living in. Let's just double click a bit more about exactly what we are talking about with authentication authorization. Again, something I don't think most people will learn about it, but I just want to clarify that to be sure that we are talking about the same thing. So here are kind of like main two stages. Before you enable a user to access an application or service, you want to be sure of two things. You authenticate the user and you authorize the user then. What does that mean? So what do you do about it? So authenticate, what are we doing is that we are really checking that is it really user XYZ that is presenting this request to your system at the door of your information system, right? How do you do that? You make some directory checks whether it's verified that user is known. You recognize that's an employee from the company you work for. You maybe some credential checks, right? And you can make some MFA checks. It can be some device checks to really double check it is the right person, or you want to make some checks about the device, whether it's an authorized device or it's a device that is healthy enough to access your system. Then there is the authorization steps, where you're actually taking, we confirm that is user XYZ, but actually you want to check that user XYZ has really access to that application or the service is trying to get to, right? So as part of that, it's really the authorization phase, where you have a role lookup, you can have some IAM tools checks, and you have some logging typically happening, right? Okay, now that we set up the change, just step back and okay, when we look about this process, happening, authentication, authorization, what are we doing here? So we are taking actually these three bubbles right there, right? Three cycles. Whether the user context, like the user, whether the user person, are you really that person? It's not a hacker, somebody's trying to impersonate you, right? And the context you are in. We are looking at the digital identities. So it is user XYZ that we know that's an employee we can sell, or we can check some other credential, whether he is part of a certain group, is part of the developer group or certain developer team within the company. And then you are checking as well the resource access control. And what we do is that we look at that and we make a decision that, okay, this is authorized. This user, we know it is the right user, and he has access to that. And we make kind of a trusted decision about you can access that, and then you grant access, right? So it's really a combined set of information that is split. The checks are split into phase today. Right. So let's just having a look about the current solutions and the potential problem associated to it. So again, just setting the step, we have a user who wants to access application. So what is happening today? It's literally the user is going to a door, he's having a key, right? And he's opening the door, and whether he has the right key or not, is being allowed to get in. It's a bit simplified right there. But what I want to emphasize here is that if you have the key, you can get in, and you're in, and you're in for a good time, right? It's not like you have somebody can grab you and kick you out. It's like you're in. Right. So how do you do that today? Typically, you have a password-based authentication, right, with multi-factor authentication. That can be a push-based, can be a SMS-based, can be a one-time password-based, right, et cetera, et cetera. You have even now coming out the Web of N-based passwordless, where actually your device holds a secret key that has been generated by the protocol, right, and that's authenticating you, and you control this private key. There are some as well interesting concept of the OAuth and the single sign-on, right, with OAuth in XAML, which kind of enable the user not to have too many keys to have to handle to access different applications, right? But what's important to see here is that, at least in the authentication checks, it is a one-time check. You check at a certain, when the user show up at your door, you check whether he has the right credential, right? He knows his password, he has his MFA set up and working, and you let him in, right? And that's something important to remember, right? The other right, the authorization, same. And what's important to maybe to just to realize there is that we are making authorization decision based on the output of the authentication, right? It's good, it's the right user. And on information typically coming within inside the enterprise, coming from directories and also some information like that. So you can call it a bit of an implicit trust, right? So, but when we look at that, is it really solving the problem we have today, right? Not sure. So here, before going into that, the question I just raised, I'm just showing some kind of a simplified architecture of the process I just explained, right? And I want to introduce the term I'm using. It's called the identity posture. So if you look actually on the left side, right, you have the password, the MFA, sometimes the device health checks that are part of MFA solutions today, right? You can look at it as you are creating a set of information a certain time t about the user, and you can call it identity posture, right? And you take that, you make an authentication decision, and then you make an authorization decision, fueling the information coming from the directory and access list, to decide at this point in time whether you allow the user to access the services, right, or the application that you are hosting. So going back to my question, is that solution really being able to cover the use case we have today, right? Can we distinguish, for example, an access coming from a coffee shop or from an employee within the office, or an employee but within his own office, right, at home? Can we, is it really adapted to that? And I don't think it is, right? It is hard. We can certainly kind of build something and being able to do that, but as it is defined, right, with a password, with an MFA, it's not really something we have today, right? Yes. Now I would like to get into a bit of introducing a kind of a new approach that is based on zero trust authentication. But I would like to introduce this new approach on two concepts. So first, it's a concept that is not really linked to zero trust architecture, and I'm going to be back on that, but it's really like a new approach that's changing the game. So from that picture where we make really, I'm coming back on this static check, a point in time when the user show up at your door. I like to actually to pass to a place where we are continuous, right? And it's continuous authentication. You have sometimes continuous trust monitoring or continuous multi-factor authentications. All of these terms are kind of talking about the same concept. But if you come back on this identity posture, which I hope you understand the concept right now, it's like instead of evaluating this identity posture at a point in time, we like to actually to evaluate it continuously, right? And the concept you might come to your mind right now is that, oh, now if we are continuously evaluating the identity posture, we could be actually capable of taking somebody that was inside and say, hey, you're not actually anymore the person you claim to be, right? And so you need to get out, right? You can cut a session. You can say, oh, this is not the condition for you to have access are not there anymore. And then we can revoke potentially your access, right? It's quite complex. There are a lot of other things that are coming behind that, right, on the data path. But that's kind of the first step we like to go for. So how do you do that? The problem is that if you base your authentication on a password-based or like on something that is depending actively on active user action, you cannot really go like a continuous, right? You're not going to ask the user to continuously push his phone or continuously re-entering his password or continuously validating with this, even with this fingerprint, right? So how do you do that? So the idea is that instead of using these factors, which are based typically on something you know and something you have, and to focusing more on the something you are, right? Or something maybe you are in an environment. Which environment are you in, right? Well, maybe what are you doing? And maybe you're focusing on this type of information in order to establish an identity posture about the user showing at the door, right? So here, that's really what we are looking at, is changing a bit the type of factor we look at to establish this identity posture, to have something that can be continuously existing and therefore continuously querying, being capable of querying continuously, right? And the nice part of it, and I didn't cover that yet, but we are automating here. And automating is a really interesting concept, because what we see today, and we see with password, I mean, if I'm saying humans are not made to create good password, I think not many people on earth will like argue with me, right? We are not made to that. We are bad in doing password. We have seen that many times in the history, in the news, with the 1, 2, 3 passwords used by even higher ranked people, right? And lately, you might have heard about some big buzz of hack going out recently out in the news. We see that the MFA actually, even though it's a great asset in security compared to a single password, or the push type of stuff, or like it can be actually sensitive because the user literally has been kind of fooled. The user, you cannot count to your employees actually to always do the right thing. Somebody's going to make a mistake one day, and that's the only mistake might get the bad people in and make damage to your enterprise, right? So if we take the human action out of the loop, we are actually potentially in a better security place than before. Okay, so the automate part is very interesting. Now coming back more like on the zero trust aspect of it, right? So zero trust architecture, zero trust principle is really to not trust anything coming in the border of your perimeter, right? So look at it as this zero trust barrier right there. Anything other that you don't trust. So in order to let somebody pass this frontier right there, they need to show up what they like, good credential, right? Valid credentials. So they need to kind of present an identity posture that you can validate and that you can trust, right? What we can see in this picture, that's a picture of today, kind of a reality of the zero trust architecture, is that we have still information that are taking into account for the authorization part, I'm sorry, that are coming from within the enterprise, right? Directories like LDAP or Active Directory information, access list control, which are implicitly trusted, right? We believe that they are good because they are actually coming from within the enterprise. But actually, with the reality, and I was discussing with some customer yesterday about it, like these lists are not always clean, right? There are some mistakes, there are some outdated information, and this is a great place actually, if a hacker can reach them, to actually take power, take control, right, on what they can do. So this is not a fully kind of, if I may call that, it's not really a full zero trust architecture in terms of an authorization decision. So can we pass from this world, right, where to another world where we can actually have a zero trust barrier that is going backward, right? And today we don't have much a solution. So that's where actually I want to introduce the concept, if we can actually bring in the concept of distributed identity. And so what it is, distributed identity, I'm going to maybe go deeper in the particular concept many of you, I'm pretty sure, knows and heard about it. But before going there, I want to use kind of this example right there, right? I hope that most of you might have seen that in the part of the world you're living in, and might understand what it is. But I will just explain. So it's typically a very, I think, a very, since I'm a child, I think it's very clever. It's a very clever barrier actually to avoid to have actually cattle or animals to pass on the other side, while human can do or cars can do, right? So we can go because we have wider feet, right? So any animals also with wider feet, they can pass, but animals with small feet like cattle, right, or cows, sheep, etc., they are a bit struggling, they won't pass, they won't stop. So that's a very clever, I think, authorization method, right? So can we do that? And what's interesting is that we are carrying the identity with ourselves, which is the size of our feet, right? And cows are carrying that as well with themselves. It's not that this information is not coming from a directory somewhere saying, hey, this is a cow, it should not pass. No, it's kind of with us, right? So that's the interesting concept of the idea, is that you can, with distributed identity, you can actually have a user carry its own identity credentials, right? Carrying the fact that I am a Swiss citizen, carrying the fact that I'm over 21, carrying the fact that I can drive, I have a valid driving license, etc., right? So what's nice is that if we come back to this picture on the architecture, is that instead of sourcing the identity credential information, like being part of a certain role, right? I'm a developer, or I'm part of Cisco, I'm part of, I'm a Swiss citizen, I'm over 21, etc. Sourcing that directly into the authorization engine coming from this implicit trust zone of information within the company, we can actually have this information being available on ledgers, right? And here it's not the point of opening whether ledgers are good or distributed ledgers are a good thing or a bad thing. They just offer good opportunities there. And that could be kind of a public ledgers, which is not necessarily to be distributed. It works the same, but the spirit is that the user really carry its information with him about being a developer, right? And actually, this is being fed into this identity posture, right? And the identity posture is carrying a public reference of the fact that this person is a developer. And when it comes to receiving a request and making an authorization decision, like once at a time T or continuously, the relying party, the enterprise, actually can consult easily the ledgers to verify on the fly whether this person showing up at the door is really a Cisco employee, is really a developer, and to grant him. And that's kind of very, very quick and very efficient. So here we kind of kill the world where you have this implicit trust zone, you have list of access, list of role teams, and we actually encoded that actually in this kind of infrastructure that you can see here at the bottom in the middle, right? So the implicit trust zone really passed actually to the right. We really kind of transfer the information about the user, the roles, etc., out of this implicit trust zone and out in the place of information that can be instantly verified. No, I hope that was clear. I hope you enjoy that. I'm just going to have a quick recap and trying to give you the takeaways that hopefully you're going to keep with you after this session. So what have we seen, right? So we have seen first that our world became mobile and remote, right? Again, this transformation that we passed over the last years really changed the way we work. Most of us are the way we work. Currently with you here online, partly because of that, right? Most conferences are hybrid right now, on site as well as on the web. And therefore, again, you can have a user that is anywhere connecting to a service and application that can be anywhere. And literally, because we have as well this transformation about being on-prem and being in the cloud, right? These hybrid cloud solutions, which is very popular as a service model, is very popular. So your application actually can be anywhere as well. So the digital perimeter has really exploded. It's quite hard actually to really build a big wall around your stuff because you don't know where your stuff is, kind of, almost, right? The current authentication authorization model, and that's kind of a personal claim, and I'm sure there are going to be arguments about that, but I believe it's kind of currently failing, and the breaches we have seen lately are actually some kind of like symptoms that you see about that. Passwords, nothing new right there, right? We have MFAs because passwords are not secure, I think, but we have solutions for password, right? Web of them is a great option there. But even MFAs, right, are not really solving it all. And there is these problems that we have currently a model where we are actually making only one check in time, and we have limited capacity to evaluate continuously whether a person is really still at home or is not actually traveling in the car or being in the coffee shop when in the morning you collect it from his home, right? This is not that straightforward to check. So what do we need, right? So we need a new approach that is continuous, where you can continuously evaluate whether the user is at home or is on the move, or is it in the public Wi-Fi in the airport, right? We need to understand this context in which the user is and adapts, right? We don't necessarily need to have a binary type of, or you're good or not good. You might be good, we still grant you access because you are in the public airport, but we're not going to grant you access to all the stuff you want, right? We might degrade a bit your access control, your access capacity. And we need to be more robust with regard to security, management of the trust, right? Coming back to this kind of list of access right that we have today in the enterprise that sometimes are not really up to date, right? And have a better way to maintain them. So I gave you kind of a short taste about solution existing in that world. TMFA is a technology that has been under development recently. There are prototypes, there are people doing that, continuous multi-factor authentication or continuous trust monitoring. The DID, the distributed identity, which is a great tool actually to better manage the trust. The distributed identity and verified claims are standards actually existing in W3C today. You find many blockchains, distributed ledgers, which are actually capable of creating DIDs and verifying the DIDs and the claims associated to it. And so, in short, we have all the tools which are in a mature state. They are not just in the academic world, they are in a mature state to be used, right? And so I believe now is kind of the time to really be able to make that step. So thank you. Thanks a lot for attending this session. I'm looking forward to have some feedback and some comments and any kind of open discussion. I'm super open to discuss with you. And I wish you a good day or night or evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.